Can we curse in this podcast? Is that allowed?
I think possibly, but not necessarily. If indicated, if appropriate.
If appropriate, which honestly it might be.
Appropriate if appropriate.
Yeah. All right.
And you know it when you see it. Mm-hmm. Well, every week is more interesting than the previous week.
Indeed. Our roundup has really become a staple, necessary story format, and it will continue for the foreseeable future, I think, right?
I think so. I don't know what else there is in the world other than what the White House is thinking, doing, announcing.
I know. We have so many stories in the docket that are just not relevant right now. Right? They're relevant, but it's just, to cover anything besides what's happening is just not doing justice to the world that oncologists are living in right now. It's a wild time.
I have not seen this much impact, good or bad, from any administration coming in.
Wow. And that's something coming from you, Paul. You've been in this field for a long time. No, you've been in the field for a long time. That's what I was saying.
That's a nice way of saying it.
All right. Well, to divert from that, I will take us briefly through last week's headlines. Our cover story last week was, like we said, yet another roundup of cancer policy news, including a sort of focus on national cancer organizations like ASCO, AACR, and the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, as well as also Research America, calling on Congress to restore stability to NIH amid budget caps and mass firings, which we've covered and talked about a lot on the podcast and in our previous issues. Our next story dove deeper into the issue of the mass firings at HHS, which included Renee Wegerson, director of ARPA-H, which was a new development last week. Our reporters, Claire and Yiching, gathered a large collection of social media posts from people who have been fired, who are speaking out on social media. Many of them received an email saying, quote, "The agency finds you are not fit for continued employment because your ability, knowledge, and skills do not fit the agency's current needs, and your performance has not been adequate to justify further employment at the agency." So, hearing responses to that, a lot of people were just weeks away from the end of their probationary employment period. There's a lot of really powerful statements in that story. And we had another installment of our weekly column from former NCI Director Kimon Rathmel discussing the importance of a global perspective in cancer research, as well as a guest editorial written by George Weiner about the necessity of political advocacy at this time. We also had an interview with Brian Rivers, director of the Cancer Health Equity Institute at Morehouse School of Medicine, one of 4 historically Black medical schools in the country. The interview was conducted by Robert A. Wynn, director of VCU Massey Cancer Center and guest editor of the Cancer Letter during Black History Month. Finally, Paul, you wrote a piece about the data behind the paper quoted in President Trump's February 13th executive order, which establishes the president's Make America Healthy Again Commission. This is the story that we were hoping to get into a little bit this week, since we've covered sort of the firings in the past. And this is a story we can definitely dig our teeth into. There's a lot to talk about. So, Paul, what exactly does this executive order say, and why was it raising eyebrows in the cancer epidemiology community?
The executive order creates a commission, presidential commission, to make America healthy again. And it cites data that nobody's ever seen before. I don't understand. I couldn't understand it. Nobody else could understand it. And if you look at the data, the exact language, and by the way, the data are not cited by the paper itself is not cited. So we found the paper, and we cite the paper. And the paper comes from 3 researchers in Wuhan, published in a journal that's called, I think, Journal of Hematology and Oncology. And it's not one of the major epidemiology journals, or not one of the major journals, really, in the world. And yet here it is. And this is important. Why? It's important because if America is unhealthy and it wants to be healthy again, how unhealthy is it? This is the baseline. Where are they getting the baseline? The United States, by the way, has one of the world's best systems for registries for tracking cancer. So instead of getting the numbers from there, or instead of getting numbers from WHO, the more accepted sources, it seems the White House found the paper that said that America has the highest incidence of cancer in the world. Oh my God, oh my God. Also, you really have to understand what having a high incidence of cancer actually means. It means you're diagnosing a lot of cancer. So, you could take this to the kind of a logical extreme and see which country has the lowest incidence of cancer in the world. And you would find, according to the Wuhan group, that it might be Burundi. And Burundi has very low incidence of cancer. I would not recommend anyone to move to Burundi in order to escape cancer. It just means they are not tracking it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think, I'm not sure if you got into this in your story, Paul, but the paper out of Wuhan was not, intended to be used as this sort of baseline for an executive order to claim that the U.S. is not healthy. That was not their plan. That was not in their methodology. And a lot of, I think what you went into in the story was the methodology they used is not typical of our registry data collection.
No, not at all. SEER, for example, does not collect data on non-melanoma skin cancers. And this paper does include that. Once you start collecting that, first of all, I don't even know how you would collect it. They say they modeled it. The Wuhan group says they modeled, but I don't know how you would collect it. It's usually found in the dermatologist's offices, not reported really much of anywhere. So you can model it in one way or another. Plus, America the United States would have a very high incidence of non-melanoma skin cancers because you have a lot of fair-skinned people living in places like, South Carolina.
Yeah, San Diego, yeah.
San Diego, yeah. One can keep going on that list. So you're going to have a lot of non-melanomas. And start putting them in. And I actually asked, I dropped an email to the corresponding authors, and they haven't heard back yet. I think I will. I'm not even sure they're aware of how influential their paper has become and that it's being quoted by the White House. I haven't had the opportunity to talk with them. Yeah, but it's interesting how, if you look at data that actually exists, that compares more authoritative data, more accepted data rather, that compares, that does the worldwide comparisons, the top four. Oh, here's what the paper actually says. Here's what the executive order states. It states that the United States has the world's highest age standardized incidence of cancer, and the next one is half that much, and that's Canada. Well, the standard data would tell you that the United States is number 4. Again, depending on what you do with non-melanomas, the skin cancers, but let's just include them. The United States is number 4 behind Australia, New Zealand, Denmark, and so we're number 4. And the 5th one, I'm not even sure it's Canada, and it's very, very close to the United States. There is no 50%, 100%. No, none of that. It's just right behind there. So I don't know how they got the data. I don't know what they did to the data, and I don't think anybody does either. But the concern would be, that this is the baseline. This is how we're going to make America healthier than what it is. And thank you, researchers in Wuhan. Most people just said, "What in the world is this?" That's really what I got. The other part that was kind of sad and a measure of the time, when you contact biostatisticians, epidemiologists, public health experts, they're usually proud to tell you what they think and be quoted by name. Here, I have people saying, I can't be quoted by name. My institution might not get its grant renewed. I might not get a grant. It's very different time than what I'm used to. And these are people I know, people I talk to all the time.
Yeah, that's really
so.
cool.
Yeah, and by the way, the other thing is that that we really should remember is the incidence of cancer, high incidence of cancer, is often a good thing because it means you have a system that finds cancers.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Incidence is not really the metric that people should necessarily be concerned with, right?
Well, you shouldn't be concerned about, but you're measuring many things when you're measuring incidence, where you're measuring, and you don't necessarily look at, you're measuring how effective your system is in finding disease, but you're also measuring over diagnosis, you're also measuring over treatment. All of that. Well, you're not measuring over treatment. You're measuring many things, such as overdiagnosis. Overdiagnosis is possibly one of the I guess characteristics of a well-functioning system. What you should do with that is find people who are doing less well than others, and focus on them.
Yeah.
And that would actually be a very good thing. Now, I guess maybe we should really talk for a moment also about what incidence means, also in terms of diagnosis. So you basically diagnose a bunch of people, and in the United States, it's high incidence is driven by prostate cancer and breast cancer. You diagnose a bunch of people, and then your survival rates go up. Because without anyone living any longer. So it's an interesting thing if this is where the game they want to play. But on the other hand, if you're out after essentially establishing a baseline, oh my God, high incidence cancer, then of course the mission accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a lot of really excellent quotes in this story. The fruit salad quote is really one of my favorites. I can get that up quick. When you decide to include non-melanoma skin cancers in your analysis, you're not just combining and comparing apples and oranges. You're basically examining a fruit salad. So that one I just had to say that if I was going to bring up any quotes at all. But the one I intended to bring up originally was any epidemiologist worth his or her salt will tell you that the appropriate outcome measure is cancer mortality and not incidence. It incorporates both finding and doing something about what you found, treatment. And I think that's really what a lot of the focus on incidence in this sort of alarm bell ringing executive order is really missing.
And by the way, mortality has been declining, and this paper does not, of course, state that. And it's and the numbers are like nothing anybody's ever seen. So instead of just bringing it to real experts in the field, this was brought to the White House. And actually, I'm not even sure experts in the field would even think about it very much. They're fun to talk to, though, so I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, good
for
you.
I could quote all of them by name, and under normal circumstances, I would have.
I know. This is a tricky question, but worth talking about. What do you think the Trump administration gains by selectively citing data like this?
No, I'm not privy to what the conversations have been. Somebody brought the the executive order writer some cherry-picked data, and they said, oh, that's exactly what we're looking for to show just how bad things are, make America healthy again. There are ways to make America healthier than it is. They're very difficult. In oncology, people started just buzzing about this.
Yeah. But
if you brought it out into the real world outside this field, people would say, "Oh yeah, cancer incidence bad."
Yep. Yep.
Yep. Uncle Eldon died of it.
Yep. Exactly.
Poor guy.
Exactly. So yeah, I think we talked really well through the story. There's a lot more details in the story itself with graphs and charts and everything like that, that please feel free to go and dive into yourself. But is there anything else you want to talk about, Paul?
Thank you. It's another interesting week. It's a great time to be a journalist.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you for joining us on the Cancer Letter podcast, where we explore the stories shaping the future of oncology. For more in-depth reporting and analysis, visit us at cancerletter.com. With over 200 site license subscriptions, you may already have access through your workplace. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share. Together, we'll keep the conversation going.
Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and thank you for listening.